Hello, Asuminari here with more how-to tanking. This how-to is about surviving when you need to. A lot of tanks I speak with agree that there are a number of mitigation choices you should take because they will reduce the most damage dealt to you over the course of a fight. Websites like simulationcraft.org provide tools to help you ensure this via parses of characters in patchwork-style environments. The problem is, there are just about 0 fights in the game nowadays that match patchwork 100%. Look at your damage taken per fight versus damage taken when it matters. Your survivability boils down to using the right skill at the right time. Defenses can be defined by a few distinct choices you can make with active mitigation, self-healing, and cooldown cycling. For the purposes of this guide, I spent roughly 5 minutes on the tanking dummy in my garrison on 3 of my tanks to challenge myself to survive with their individual toolkits. Each one stressed a different facet of self-sustaining survivability. In an actual tanking situation, you're going to have a healer to supplement your longevity. But that doesn't mean it wasn't great practice for those times when you're much more responsible for staying alive on your own. First, let's study our most present defense, active mitigation. All tanks can maintain about 80% uptime on their active mitigation throughout an encounter. This is where a lot of important decision making can come in because how you spend your global cooldown determines whether you live or die on the boss's next swing in some cases. Take a look at the resources that matter to you. Rage, holy power, chi, how do these affect your decisions? Most of the time when you start an encounter, you're going to be lacking the things you need to defend yourself, so you'll want to start building them up and banking them. Where you spend it should be based on the situation you're being thrown into. In this example, my protection warrior, who I build very crit heavy, has a strong chance to parry repeatedly. The game tries to sell me on my primary active mitigation being shield block, but let's look at the way shield block is designed. With shield block, you have a 100% chance to block your next attack, but you can still dodge or parry. So if you dodge or parry, then that means you blocked nothing. In cases where I'm only fighting a single creature, there are some moments where I dodge or parry multiple attacks during the 6-second window of shield block. In such cases, using shield block is a trap and a waste of my rage. If I want to block damage that matters, in this case I'll prefer shield barrier and keep an eye on my barrier remaining. This active mitigation requires a lot more attention on my part. In some cases I've actually spent too much rage on my barrier, causing it to fall off before being fully absorbed. If I really wanted to min-max this, I can either dump my rage on damage or shield blocks. Since I'm not taking any damage, I opt to throw in heroic strikes. When will I use shield block? Well, dodging and parrying aren't a perfect answer to defense. And being attacked by hordes of enemies, I won't be able to dodge and parry every attack, so I'll want to have a shield block up since more attacks will come in during that 6-second window that will check my ability to dodge, parry, or block. So what have I learned here? Blocking will inherently mitigate more damage, but that is assuming I neither dodge nor parry a single attack, and that I'm being attacked many times while the buff is active. Blocking will not prevent me from dying, whereas a barrier will be a complete and flat absorb. I can be chipped to death through either, but shield barrier provides all of its mitigation up front. Blocking does not scale with attack power, but barriers will, and barriers will also scale with resolve, whereas block is always a flat amount of the hit I take. Barriers will also absorb magical damage. Looking at just the toolkit of a warrior's active mitigation, I now apply that to real situations. Charging in, I make sure I have aggro with a quick thunderclap. I grab some more enemies before turning back around. I'm ready to settle down so the DPS can go to town. I'm watching my health to make sure it isn't dipping low while I'm dashing back and forth. Now here's the question, what type of damage will I next be taking and is it worth me spending my rage on? I'm getting myself into a position where I can use shield block effectively, still keeping an eye down here to see if I'm actually blocking a lot of damage or not. I'll throw up some barriers since I seem to be dodging quite a bit. But if my barriers are rapidly disintegrating under pressure, then I'm going to want to try and keep shield block on cooldown. Let's take a look at the next step in keeping yourself alive, self-healing. What kind of self-healing you have and whether or not your class is based around it determines how effective it is to recover with your own resources. For this example, I'll be on my Death Knight. Their primary quote-unquote mitigation comes from Death Strike, which comes from rune use. How do I manage my runes and get them back when I need them? We look to our talents. I was told going in that Plague Leech and Blood Tap were the best options for talents. I found that they were incredibly difficult to manage at first because of the intense pressure you have to spend your resources as fast as you can and the effort to prevent capping and wasting them. Once I got used to the rotation that manages my resources most efficiently, I found that these talents gave me the most control over how to access my runes when I needed them. Now Blood Death Knights only really have one passive source of damage reduction compared to warriors, so I'll be much more responsible for recovering lost health rather than preventing its loss. When I ran into this tanking dummy, I was already trying to spend my runes, apply diseases, and start my rotation. I have an eye on my bone shield, my health, and my blood charges. If my health ever dips low, all I need to do is start blood tapping for runes, or Plague Leech, Blood Boil to reapply diseases, and get a few cent of blood stacks before a strong Death Strike will top me up. That is the control you have as a Death Knight with these talents, the ability to say, I need health right now, and do something about it. Death Knights are capable of a lot of self-healing, so long as you're anticipating powerful strikes and mitigating them with Rune Tap or Icebound Fortitude, you should always be able to keep yourself healthy without much help from a healer. Note that when you're healing yourself, you'd obviously rather not waste a death strike by overhealing, but not all healers are going to appreciate seeing their tanks at 50% life. Being low on health is fine and dandy when the next attack isn't threatening to kill you before you have a chance to recover, but how about when there's some real pressure on you to prevent as much incoming damage as you can? This brings me to the topic of cooldown cycling and management. There's no such thing as a one-shot macro for damage reduction. There needs to be a game plan. Let's look at my druid now to see his struggles with the same mob and what lessons we can learn from him. My druid does not have the same type of self-healing that my Death Knight has, and also lacks the level of passive mitigation that my warrior has with shield blocks or barriers. I found that in these situations, druids are much more reliant on managing cooldowns, chaining them from one to the next to survive. As a druid, you have active mitigation in the form of frenzied regeneration and savage defense, and long-term cooldowns via bark skin every minute, survival instincts twice with a 3-minute recharge, and in my case I choose bristling fur, which comes back every 30 seconds, renewal, which comes back every 2 minutes, and nature's vigil, which comes back every minute and a half. That is a lot of cooldowns, but I found that although most people would rather sit on their abilities waiting for a rainy day, mastering a cooldown rotation on my druid has made them much less of the healing sponge meat shields I've heard them called in the past. This playstyle won't provide the same uptime on mitigation and healing that I'm used to, but does that mean he's not as good of a tank in this situation? No. He's just as capable of surviving if I'm clever about it. Remember that if you have an unused trinket like the one I'm using here, it's just as important to factor in how often it'll be up and when you'll be using it. Proc trinkets should be tracked with a weak aura, or tell me when, so that you know when their effects are up, so you can clearly see it and adjust your defenses accordingly. Notice that although I like the same passive mitigation as the first two tanks, I'm still keeping myself alive over long periods of time by going from one cooldown to the next until the longer ones can come back.
Why would you take Pulverize? That's 15% for an entire fight. Bristling Fur is only 3 seconds.
Yeah, and why don't I take Ysera's Gift, which could be healing me at all times without having to think about it. Well, for Pulverize to reduce the most damage over Bristling Fur, I would have to be tanking the boss for 100% of an encounter. There are some bosses where this isn't a bad choice, but the option to take what is essentially a bear's Rune Tap can help me survive something like Manoros Glaive combo. And Ysera's Gift will never save anyone's life. Surely it will do a lot of healing over the encounter, but Renewal can prevent the next swing from being the one that murders me.
Take a look at Iron Reaver, a fight where on progression, my warrior nearly died simply because he hit so hard that despite blocking or using a barrier, I was losing half my health per auto attack. That's because Reaver is so busy doing special attacks that take a while to deal with that you aren't being attacked throughout most of the encounter. When you are being attacked, it has to hurt to be meaningful. You only have to deal with Reaver's auto attacks for so long before he's busy doing something else. This fight is a short form way of teaching tanks that they need to know what will prevent the most damage for a given period of time. Start of the encounter, you run in, no resolve, but trinket procs, precast shields, and hots are still rolling, so you're gonna be fine. Artillery is coming in, and you need to run out. This thing hurts. You have to run far away from people to prevent them from dying, so you may not get outside healing, but you won't need it. If you're low on health, best option is some type of cooldown like Enraged Regeneration from a warrior or the Druid's Renewal, plus a flat DR like Bristling Fur for the strike itself. Running back in, your resolve is low from the downtime. Be ready to feel some pain, maybe using Shield Wall on the way in so you aren't crushed. If the Reaver hits you, your resolve is high again. You can now self-heal and absorb better. But the boss will soon be doing pounding, so do I really want to use another cooldown? Make your active mitigation count while resolve is high. Save your cooldowns for times when you're on your own. My health will spike much less, because I manage my cooldowns so that I can protect myself when it matters most, instead of simply blanketing myself to reduce all incoming damage by a minor amount at all times, including when I'm taking no damage at all. So remember this when trying to maximize survivability. Active mitigation comes with multiple choices and usually works best under high resolve. Find ways that can best bolster your own healing and when you should be using it so that it won't interfere with outside healing. And keep in mind which damage reductions will best benefit you for an encounter. Don't forsake a short and powerful cooldown just because it won't be there forever. I hope that this guide helped. It can be difficult to make these judgment calls when the pressure is on, but knowing what type of defense is best suited to a situation will make you shine amongst other tanks who healers may say need a lot more attention or healing focus. Good luck, have fun, and I'll see you next time with more tanking tips. Thanks for watching.